buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the program. It is hour one of this beautiful Monday edition of the program. 39 degrees here down on top of the world in Homer, Alaska. A little bit cooler in other parts of the state. And I understand you've seen some of that white stuff up in the northern climes up there in Fairbanks. I know it's kind of weird, but winter is getting here. It's Monday already, and we're ready to get into it. Interesting discussion today. I've been watching it for the last couple of years, of course, as I've been trying to get down into Homer and move down here and do all this. I've been seeing some of the stories that have been going around, especially in some of the coastal communities, talking specifically about landslides and how they have affected various communities, including Seward, and we saw it happen down in Ketchikan, and all this different things. And I had never really considered this because for the most part I lived way up in the highlands or in areas where we didn't have a lot of hydrological, is that correct word? Hydrological events that caused some of this stuff. And interestingly enough, I got an invitation from some folks to discuss this, including a big community landslide forum that's going to be happening down here in Homer tomorrow at the Ketchikan Bay campus, where they're going to talk a little bit about the importance of conversation about landslide hazards. And I thought this was going to be an interesting discussion. Joining us this morning to talk about it is local scientist Brettwood Higman, Dr. Hig, who's a geologist, and Anna, I'm going to butcher this name, I'm going to do it, Anna Liljedahl, who's a hydrologist, and Julie Engebresten. You know me in names, folks. Come on. And she's with the city of Homer, and we brought them all on this morning to discuss this and to get a little bit of a perspective and a discussion on this. So let's get started, shall we? And bring everybody on board, except Anna, who's a little camera shy this morning. And we'll get this all. Oh, there she is. We'll get it all done, and we'll get a discussion going on this. All right. So first and foremost, you guys all have to unmute yourself, and we'll say good morning to you all. How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. Thanks for inviting.
Good morning. So, Julie, let's start with you, since you're with the city and you guys have kind of, I think, started to organize this. So tell us a little bit about what the city is doing here and what your role is in this, and give us a little bit of background here. Will you please?
Absolutely. My name's Julie Engebresten. I've been with the city of Homer for about 23 years now. And steep slopes and natural hazards have been a concern of the Homer community for a long time. And we have things like a seawall, and we have debris flows that block off East End Road periodically. So it's something of interest to our community, but pulling off, a lot of research or an in-depth conversation is a little bit more than the city can pull off. So when Anna approached me and said, hey, we have an opportunity to work together to put on a forum and provide information to folks, I said, that sounds great. Personally and professionally, I've been watching kind of the landslide hazard conversation since about 2015, when Sitka had their landslide hazard where people lost their lives. And there've been some really great articles over the last decade about the research that's going on and the hazards and what we know and what we don't know. So hopefully this forum this week, both in Homer and in Seward, kind of sparks some conversation. And that's where we hope to go, is have some conversations about what what do folks think? What questions do they have? And what, if anything, should government do about it?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because this is raised up into the public's mind enough that even in the last mayoral election here in Homer, one of the candidates was specifically talking about water flow and landslides and having to look at properties and say, you've got to make plans for, where does your water go and how, I think it's starting to reach that kind of point in people's minds. And as you mentioned, the big slide in Sitka, and of course Seward's been cut off a couple times. They've had areas of their communities cut off a couple times in the last couple of years from landslides. So it's a pretty big deal. Let's go over to Hig here, and Hig, give us a little bit of your background and where your expertise lies on this.
Sure, yeah. I live across the bay in Soldovia, but a lot of connections to Homer here. I come into this as a geologist who studies disasters. It's something that's been a kind of a lifelong journey for me to try to understand how we confront natural disasters. I worked on tsunamis for a long time, but I started working on landslides with a big event that happened down not too far from Yakutat in 2015. There was a landslide that went into the water in a fjord and generated this huge tsunami, fortunately in a place where there were no human effects really, or almost none. And so that started getting me interested in this. And since then, I've been working all around the state looking at different landslide hazards and disasters that have happened. So that's I guess it's brought me here to Homer, back home to my immediate neighborhood here. I think when you mentioned at the beginning, like the hydrology, and that's certainly a huge piece of this, but ultimately every place has rain, right? And it's a question: are you on the steep slopes or are you below the steep slopes? That's the big driver. And Homer, it does have this coincidence with these slopes uphill and sometimes downhill that are real steep. So trying to understand that.
This is why I live on top of a mountain. That's all I'm saying. This is what I do. Anna Liljedahl, did I do it right? Did I do right, Anna?
Good job. Even the Swedish people have a hard time saying it. So.
Now you're a hydrologist, and said I right when I said hydrological event? I mean, is that kind of is that some of the precursors to what we're talking about here?
Oh yeah, you're on it. Absolutely. No, I think we have one of our presenters. She's calling in. She's Jennifer Francis. She's going to talk about extreme rain events in particular, and so I'm looking forward to learn also more from her. So yes, water. I agree with you that we got to think about the water.
Well, we always think of water as kind of soft and gentle, but it is one of the most driving forces in our world in so many ways. Having spent time on the Bering Sea, I can tell you that it is it's a beautiful but dangerous thing to witness for sure. So Anna, tell us a little bit about what you guys are going to dive into here and what the average person, homeowner, landowner, contractor, developer, just the average person, what can we learn by going to this big event here?
Yes, so we wanted to create a space for people to both learn the basics of landslides, so it's controlling them, so Hig is sharing his knowledge there. And then the second thing, we wanted to have a space for people to share their concerns, because people had experiences in the past with unstable ground. And at the same time, there's still so much to learn about this hazard across Alaska and also in Homer as well. We're starting from 2 reports that DDGS and DNR released. Last one was last December. So we have something there to work from. And then also Hig's assessments that he's done himself over the area, specifically at Homer. So it's going to be a conversation around maps, that's for sure. And during the day, we're going to have a workshop with people, just like you described, people with those knowledge, that background. And then in the evening, on Tuesday evenings, doors open at 5:30 and starts at 6. That's when we have the public come in, so anyone interested. And we're going to have a little panel, and then good time for questions and discussion to hear people's thoughts.
Okay. Hig, you said you've been chasing these kind of disasters around the world, and you guys are going to get we're supposed to get some lessons from other places, right? Philippines, California, things like that. This is something that we're seeing around the world. And of course, as you know, we see the weather changes, and it goes cyclically, whether it's El Nino or El Nino or whatever it feels like. We get all these different weather patterns, and they can affect how we live in many ways. And of course, we've seen this go on. What are we learning from other communities and other places around the world?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you can look around the world, and there are a few places where they've really confronted this problem. Like Switzerland would be another interesting example. And one of the reasons I was really excited to get this scientist Roy Higman, who's coming from the Philippines, to join us, is so after some super terrible disaster back in 2008, they started putting together a landslide monitoring effort. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to detect signs that a landslide is about to happen. So they're trying to actually get ahead of that curve. They don't want to wait till it's happened and then go deal with the mess. They want to actually detect it before it happens. And they came up with this model where they have something that's at the level of the Philippine government, a federal level, they've got technology, they're putting instruments in the ground, they're monitoring stuff, and then they have local community groups that know the specific slopes and what the problems are in their own communities, and they also know who they need to talk to, who they need to make sure gets the information if something changes. So they're really that on the ground component. They brought those together really successfully, and that's something we don't have here in the United States. Actually, especially that piece of trying to see signs that the soil or that bedrock slope is shifting or changing towards a state where it could fail. We have scientific expertise, so including in the government, USGS, in the State Geologic Survey, but we don't have someone who's actually going to watch that and let you know, hey, this might be the day you want to get out of the way.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. Somebody just pointed out in the chat room, because we brought up some extreme examples, but last year, just north of Cantwell, there was a landslide that took out part of the Parks Highway there as well. So, I mean, it happens all over the state. And specifically, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you guys on here was to talk with, local landowners here in Fairbanks, in the interior, across, wherever, Kodiak, and say, what should people be looking out for? And as they look at this, either on their property or maybe they're looking to buy or build something new, what are some of the big things that they should be looking at from a geological standpoint? We could start with Hig here. We'll go back to Anna, but what are some of the things that we should be looking at and thinking about as we plan these things out?
Oh, yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, there's that simple one. It's just like, where are the steep slopes? And if something were to happen on one of them, would that be a problem for you? So, especially if you're looking uphill at something really steep, that's something to think about. I think another thing that's really relevant here in Homer is there are places where you dig down. Lots of stories from locals you hear who had an excavator or something. They dug way down under the soil and down, and then they found like a log, And you say, well, if there's a tree there that's buried by all this soil, that should be a red flag, and that's something that we do see in a number of places, like out along East End Road there, where there's this history, along kind of geologic history over thousands of years of really big kind of mud flows, debris flows that came down. So that's one to worry about. There are, I guess when we're, getting specific on Homer, that's where I worry a lot looking out East End Road. And then when I look west out to Bluff Point, the problem there is that huge bluff there failing. And that puts at risk, our road, that, Seward Highway there, and also the gas pipeline coming into Homer, and the fiber optic internet, that's carrying our conversation right now to the rest of the state. It runs right along that road. So we have kind of a different set of concerns out there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that definitely something we don't always think about. And then Anna, when we talk about water flows and water working in our area, on our properties, things like that, what should people be looking at as far as how do they how do I spy that out? If I'm looking at my property and looking at that, how do I look at the hydrological effects of things that are in my area, and how, what can I do to prevent, some kind of massive disaster on my own property? I mean, nobody wants their house to slip on down the hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I look for any kind of, you have a spring coming out, for example, that can saturate the soil, and that would be something that's there more long term, the groundwater coming out. And then you might have seasonal events too, where you already have a drainage in your property or above you or near you, where if you have a really high rain event, that might completely change the morphology of that drainage and spill things over. So yeah, I would look and get a map in my head of where does the water flow, both coming out from underground as well as on the surface. And I've had here where I live out in the Caribou Hills South, where I get my water, I've noticed that just about that spring when the water comes out, it's on the side of a ravine there. At the top of the ravine, I see the ground started to slump. So it's become a little more and more of a ditch over the last 5 years. And I noticed there on my little spring where I get my water jug is that there's been a couple of times where I've gone down there and there's no water flowing in the spring, and it flows year round otherwise. It's very steady. And to me, that I think is something we could use to say, oh, if the water's not coming out here, and it typically does, it means it's piling up somewhere else.
Right.
And therefore that could cause a release. And that was actually something that a researcher colleague of Haig and I in Iceland, that they noted before a big event there in December 2018, that was a big rain event, and there wasn't as much water coming down in the springs as they thought it would be because of the rain. And sure enough, they got a big event there and that buried houses. No one was injured because they had evacuated the area, but
right,
changes in the hydrology. Yeah.
Right. And again, just noting where the water goes every spring, and if it's there one spring and it or has been for multiple springs and it's not in another time, that could definitely be a problem. So we'll continue this discussion. We're coming up on the break, and so let's do that here real quick, and we're going to be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, talking about water and landslides, geology, hydrology, and all the stuff that's in between. It's going to be fun stuff. We're going to continue. The meeting is tomorrow at the Ketchimak Bay campus down in Homer. Doors open at 5:30. Event begins at 6. And then on Thursday, it's going to be in Seward. So you folks listening in Seward, it's at the library. Doors open at 5:30. The presentation begins at 6 p.m. All right. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are in the break right now, and we've got Julie and Haig and Anna here with us. Jeffrey asked the question, do any of you know anything about the big slide at mile 259 Parks High? I think that was the one we were just talking about there north of Cantwell. Anything about that specifically? Does anybody want to raise their hand and say they know anything about that specifically? Or I know you guys are focused a lot on the coastal areas or stuff, but Anna, Hig, you guys want to dive in on that?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you specifics
Hig,
about that.
You muted yourself, I think. Oh, that was me who's muted you. Never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't know that slide specifically, but there have been, a couple of really prominent cases where landslides have caused really serious road damage. One being along the Denali Park Road at Pretty Rocks. And there's it's $150 million bridge, something like that, that's just got put in to try to cross that landslide, which is an ambitious effort, we'll say. And then there's up in the Brooks Range, there's a site, they call it Frozen Debris Lobe A, that big landslide coming down pushed it into the road. They saw that coming. It was real slow landslide, and they moved the road, but they moved it downhill. There's ultimately it's going to keep going that way. They gave them some time. That makes sense, but it's still, it's not a cheap thing to move a major infrastructure.
No.
Like
I think trying to build a bridge across a landslide. I mean, how do you moor anything when it's in the middle of that's imagine that's a deal.
They're freezing the ground, so they've got refrigerant tubes going down into the rock underneath the piers for the bridge, and it's a lot of engineering, and we'll hope for the best. It makes me real nervous, that idea of building a bridge over a landslide.
Yeah, no, definitely kind of crazy. Brian says, with your properties, avoiding capturing and retaining water on your property, that's the number one. That's the number one thing for sure. It seems like that's a big deal. Chris asks Anna, have you heard of the Vajont Dam disaster in Italy? And I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, go to Hig. He's a lexicon. Go for Hig.
Yeah, well, so this is a really famous and horrible sort of landslide disaster, and it's kind of an example of engineering hubris, like overconfidence. And so when they were building this big hydroelectric dam, and as they were building it, they noticed the mountain up, where the reservoir was forming was moving, and so the engineers kind of scratched their head, and they even built a little like a ditch that was shaped like this, and dumped some rock in it, tried to figure out what would happen, and did some experiments. Felt like they had it figured out, and then so they're filling this reservoir, and then that mountain failed really abruptly, and it pushed that reservoir over the dam. 2,000 people died downstream from the flood that came from that. So really, really terrible event. Definitely, hopefully some lessons in that.
Well, yeah, the lessons like we don't know everything, and Mother Nature, she's a real, she can really be a tough situation for sure. Kim asks the question, we got about a minute here before we rejoin. Have you discussed Ketchikan? And I mentioned it in passing, but we see that in a lot of, again, the coastal communities, and especially down in the Southeast, because a lot of it's built up on sides of hills and mountains, and right, because there's not a lot of flat land out there. And so we can pick that up when we come back here to the radio here. Brian says the number one takeaway from this discussion is that gravity always wins. That's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah,
all right.
People ask what causes landslides, and the answer is always gravity. So
yeah, it is. Right. Gravity is the biggest component of all that stuff. All right, we're going to get back to you guys here in a second, including you, Julie. I know you've been quietly waiting in the wings there. She got up. She says, I got up so early in the morning to sit in my office and watch you guys talk. Yeah, we'll be back to you here in a second, Julie. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're about to rejoin. Folks, if you could do this for me, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube and Facebook things. And I know you hate me asking, but it's how we get more people involved in the conversation. And that's what we need to do. So like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're continuing now our discussion on landslide hazards, prevention, lessons from other communities, and more. We've got this event going on tomorrow at the Ketchimak Bay campus down in Homer, and then on Thursday at the Seward Library. Both events, doors open at 5:30 and begin at 6. We're talking with some of the participants here and organizers of this. And somebody in the chat room just asked, if we had discussed Ketchikan. And of course, Anna and I think Hig both mentioned earlier on, Sitka. We had the problem where Seward lost access to a big chunk of the community there for a couple times on one of the roads there. And it seems like a lot of the coastal communities are facing these issues more and more because they don't have the flat land, right? I mean, it's all being built on hillsides and stuff right on the edges, and of course, with the ocean being right there, and the moisture and the humidity and the rain and everything, it's that whole cyclic thing right on the coastline. This higher danger there, Hig. I mean, in the long run, between the geological aspect of it.
I mean, I think you're making the right link there. Steep slopes, that's where the hazard is, and that's why for many different reasons, people might choose to build their house where they build their house, right? And along the coastline, you absolutely catch can. Like, why do they build on those steep slopes? Why do they have roads that are like these things on pilings on the sides of super steep mountains? Well, it's because they don't really have a choice, right? That's where they don't have other space. There definitely are places that aren't coastal that end up, with some real proximity to steep slopes. I think of Eagle River, for instance, has these super steep slopes above homes there, up the Matanuska Highway. And I think that there's this intuition. Absolutely, water is a driver, but it's exceptional water for wherever you are. That's what really matters. So, like, if you have a rain event in a really dry place that maybe wouldn't impress someone from Ketchikan at all, they'd be like, this is no big deal. But it's extraordinary for that place. That can be a problem. We had a really close call in 2017 up at Sheep Mountain Lodge where this landslide came down out of the mountain, and there were all these people around. It swept out onto a runway. Someone flew their plane, like there was mud around the wheels, and they were trying to get it to move, wouldn't go. Another pulse of mud hit it, and it jostled it loose, and they took off with their Super Cub. And that's a really dry place, right? We're getting into Copper Basin, kind of more arid Alaska, but it was a really rainy day for that place.
Right. And that brings us to the hydrology aspect of it. And again, we think of it this being more of a coastal phenomenon, but really it is about the water wherever you are, right, Anna?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also would think about water in its liquid versus frozen form, because Alaska, we also have permafrost. We got seasonally frozen ground, and then we have permafrost that's ground that's frozen for at least 2 years. And so you could make the ground unstable by just warming up that permafrost. It doesn't even have to thaw, just warming it up. And then suddenly it's like, imagine you had bedrock holding things in place, and then suddenly that bedrock starts to get more liquid.
More like Jello now. It's not bedrock, it's more like Jello, right?
Yeah, exactly. So even think about Fairbanks. I used to live there for 15 years, and a lot of the north-facing slopes there are permafrost, and it's thick layers of silt. And if you start warming that permafrost, you might have a landslide, unstable ground, created just because you don't have that cohesion anymore that the ice used to hold and take care of. So yeah, permafrost is another spice in the dish of landslides that we have in Alaska, and something that alpine permafrost, something we don't have much knowledge about in particular.
Right. Well, and Fairbanks is the perfect example. I mean, I was born and raised in Fairbanks and spent 45 years there before the warden paroled me. And, it was, you see the highways. I mean, the highways are all that permafrost build, and you could see what happens, when they get subsumed and things melt, and it does get crazy. And just imagine that happening higher up in different areas as well. And I mean, this can be a real effect. So you got to think of. I've seen houses that were built. My father-in-law had built their house, and they drilled, all four corners in the center to check for everything, and it was fine, except for there was this one small lens that they didn't catch, between the center and one of the corners. And 15 years later, the house has got a 3-inch tilt, from one end of I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it can really mess you up.
Yep, exactly. And another form of frozen water, glaciers. So he can talk a little bit more about, how glaciers connect to this landslide hazard too. So go for it, Hig.
All right, we'll go for Hig. Hig, go for it.
Well, yeah, I think, just maybe to zoom out a little bit, like, we mentioned Ketchikan and Sitka, where there were these deadly landslides. We also, Haines and Wrangell was a particularly terrible one in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, where 6 people died in a landslide. So these are all this, pretty directly just rain. Haines got a little more complicated where it had snow on the ground. The rain fell on the snow. So that was kind of melting that snow, added a lot to it. We've had a lot of really close calls too. And I think we've ended up kind of focusing on Southeast with those events there, but we've had close calls. The most recent one, also Southeast down in Tracy Arm, where a glacier retreating kind of removed this support from the bottom of the slope, and a chunk of that slope let loose, a really, really big chunk. It was probably over 800 feet thick in places. And it hit the water there and generated a tsunami that went way up the mountain, like maybe 1,600 feet up the mountain on the other side. Now that tsunami, there were people who were in areas that were hit by it really hard. The day before, there were people that were headed there at the time, but it just happened that tsunami swept into water where there was no one to be hurt. So it was really, really fortunate. And here on the Kenai Peninsula last year, there's a glacier that's retreating at Pedersen Lagoon, which is a little bit west of Seward, and a landslide, same kind of thing, a little more complicated probably, but it came down onto the glacier, went off the toe of the glacier, generated a huge tsunami. It was over 200 feet high up the mountain in one spot, and had just dissipated to the point where it went a little bit above high tide when it got to this lodge, but it actually swept underneath occupied guest cabins. So I think that there's a lot of things going on out there, and we need to pay attention to those close calls as well as the tragedies, so that we're learning from them, and think what might happen next.
Well, people feel so safe in their homes, right? I mean, that their home is their refuge. They feel safe and everything else. And then you see things like what happened in Ketchikan or Sitka or, Wrangell, and where just homes they're just gone, swept away, and you're like, wow, it's a sobering thing. Let's go back to Julie, who's been sitting patiently, quietly waiting in the wings here. Julie, the city obviously is concerned about this, trying to bring it to people's attention. And I'm assuming both in Homer and in Seward, what kind of, was this just kind of community awareness? Is this something that the city is taking a closer look at? Talk to me about, why landslide hazard is such a big deal for the city of Homer.
Sure. So we do have some basic rules about landslide hazards, and we've had them since 1982. So that hasn't changed a whole lot in our community. But what we are seeing is the lots that were easy to develop with that beautiful view that everybody moves here for, those lots are developed. And so what's left are some really tricky lots. And when I say tricky, I mean, we don't require people to hire an engineer, but if you're looking at an expensive piece of real estate in Homer and you're going to build $1 million house, you might want to spend some money and talk to an expert about this water. We're finding buyers are getting in over their head. They thought they could develop a piece of property, or they have a vision of what they want to do, and the piece of property they're looking at either won't sustain that, or it's going to cost them a lot more than they thought, because people they see the view and they say, that's exactly what I want. And they maybe ignore the conditions of the ground underneath their feet.
Yeah, and I think that's the important. And like I said, we've seen it with Seward, for example, where they've actually had portions of the community that are literally just lopped off. You can't get to them for a period of time, and that not only just losing the road, but now being isolated and remote for however long it takes. This is an important thing to be paying attention to.
And the kinds of things we see are, somebody will spend some time and effort before they buy the lot of well, what's it going to cost for the foundation and the dirt work? And what do I have to be aware of? And okay, maybe I need to build a smaller house because this property won't hold my dream house.
Right.
But then when they get into it, it costs them a lot more money than they thought, because, standard septic system is way out the door on some of these slopes. And so that's where, folks just doing your due diligence and being aware. And we don't have regulations. Government's not here to save you necessarily or prevent you from doing something that's not great. That's on you, the homeowner or the property owner, to take that responsibility.
No, I mean, that's good. I mean, we don't necessarily need them to hold our hands for all things, but we should be paying attention, right? We should be paying attention to what's going on out there. All right, let's do one final roundy round here with everybody. Final thoughts. We'll start with Anna here on what people can learn from the event, why they should attend, and why should we be paying attention to this? I guess, Anna.
Yeah. So on Tuesday night there, it's doors open at 5:30. K-Bay campus. We start at 6. You'll hear 2 presentations from Hig and NOAA, background about landslides, what controls them, and specifically for Homer as well. And then we have a panel here where Julie is going to be there, and we have Rick from the Emergency Management Office, the state of Alaska, and Jill, who is the DGS landslide lead, talk about what we know about the hazard and what we don't know, and how people have addressed the hazard elsewhere in regards to management. So Roy Kaimo from the Philippines will share as well. And so it's really, and I spent a lot of time on hearing what people's thoughts and concerns are, and how to move forward with this discussion, because this is it's the starting place.
Starting place. It's a good starting place. Hig, your final thoughts here.
Yeah, I've ended up pouring a lot of energy into this topic because I think it's something where you're talking about it's good to have the information. I think this is something where there's an especially large gap between what people in the public know and say what scientists are figuring out, that sort of thing, and also what our capabilities are as far as society. Like if you were like, hey, I don't know, I think there's evidence of a volcano in my backyard. Well, then there is a whole Alaska Volcano Observatory, their interaction with the National Weather Service. There is a way that they could immediately respond to that. If you say, hey, I think there might be a big landslide developing in my backyard, you'll find that we don't really actually have capacity. We don't have any way to really help you out that much. And
right.
And so that's something that I hope that these conversations happening in communities can start building that capacity, and we can start really confronting these in whatever way people want to. I don't have any problem with someone like making a choice to take whatever risk. I take risks in my life. I don't want anyone telling me what to do there, but I do want to know what those risks are. I'll tell you, I don't go to Portage Lake now, except for work. I don't go there for fun. I know so many people go there for fun. It's an amazing place, but the work we're doing there, I'm really, really worried that that might be a dangerous place for a tsunami. So it's this kind of information that I'm hoping we can help people out with.
Well, yeah, and I think, again, somebody just made a mention about how I said in the headline for the show today, landslide dangers and prevention. No, we can't really technically prevent landslides, but we can have forethought in what we're doing to prevent us being a victim of a landslide, right? I mean, that's really what prevention is about, basically being out of the way, or at least, again, understanding the risk. I may have built here, and so I need to be paying special attention to this because I may have to evacuate at some point, and Brian says, we'll give Julie the final bite at the apple here. Brian points out, he says, Julie's point is well taken. The demand for views and space can crowd out, he says, the geotechnical, but I would say common sense. Sometimes we're so enamored with, oh, this is it, my view, my vision, my forever home, my dream. But is this the dream that could get you hurt down the road, or you could lose everything because you simply, are not paying attention to some of the warning signs? Julie, why should folks show up at these events, both in Homer and in Seward?
I would encourage them to come and learn about the local hazard, especially if you live in one of those places, so you can make your own decisions, because ultimately there are a lot of things that are your choice, but it's hard to make some of those choices when, again, you're looking at the beautiful view or you've got a vision. Make sure you have all of the information that you need, and this is a great place to get that for free. You don't have to hire an engineer for it.
Right, exactly. All right, so again, we're talking about the Community Landslide Forum. and it's going to be taking place tomorrow at the Ketchimak Bay campus down in Homer, and then on Thursday at the Seward Library. Both events, doors open at 5:30. Event begins at 6. You're going to hear from folks from around the world: Noah Finnegan, Jillian Nicolazzo, Michael Lucio, Roy Camo. They're going to share their real-world experiences. Hig's going to be there. Anna's going to be there. Julie's going to be there, talking about all these different things and how you can prepare yourself and prevent something happening to you. I mean, you can't prevent the landslide, but you can at least be prepared. That's the important part. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and all your surprises will be happy ones. All right. So Julie, Anna, and Hig, thank you so much for coming on board this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Hold the line for just 1 second. Folks, we're coming up on the break. We got more coming up. We're going to hit some headlines here. We're going to recap some of this in the final segment, and then we're going to hit headlines in hour 2 from around the state, see what's going on, what happened over the weekend, some crazy stuff. We're going to be talking about that. Don't go anywhere. Get some good information here. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of crazy. You can have all these great views and everything else, but it doesn't do you a lick of good if your house slides 500 feet down the mountain, right? I mean, that view was amazing right up until the point to where you went roller coastering down the hill. So it's all good stuff. Okay, so round robin, any final thoughts from any of you before anything we didn't hit on or things we should have? We'll start counterclockwise here and go with Hig here first. Hig, what do you have to say?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that, it's a tough topic, but I really think it's important to confront it is actually putting some numbers on this stuff. Like, how likely is it that one thing or another will happen? We don't have great answers for that, but it's really important to, you'll get people who say, well, this could happen, that can happen. But if you don't go and say, well, this is actually 1,000 times more likely than that, then it's really hard to decide what's going on. And right. I think that, when we look around Homer, there's some things that we know are really likely, right? Because they keep happening. We see these mud flows come down the little creeks, and sometimes they spill out of the banks. If you look at that and you're like, well, if it spilled out just a little further, then that's a problem. Well, that's a really likely hazard. Other things like, Bluff Point falling off is less likely, fortunately. It would be a really big deal. But it's because it's such a big deal that it's probably worth really seriously thinking about that. And there's some reasons to think it might be getting more likely. So that's one that, if you're a member of the public and you're talking to someone who has some expertise on this, it's great to press them, be like, okay, so how likely is this? And how does that compare to something else that I can understand, my risk of being in a car wreck or whatever.
Yeah, you've got to enumerate it, right? You've got to be able to put a score on it, a potential score to say yes, no, acceptable risk, unacceptable risk, but you've got to have some numbers behind it to make it work. Anna, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm hoping that with these conversations that what can come out of it in the end is that us scientists and engineers, that we're creating more information, more data, so people can be more empowered to make their own decisions. So, and maybe that even involves the National Weather Service, issuing warnings for, it's going to be a big rain event. If you live in these areas, maybe you need to think about if you want to stay there for this rain event or not. So I'm hoping the long run, it will result in more understanding, more data being generated that can empower people to make their own decisions.
Yeah. Well, again, there's more data is always good. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but even I know that more data is always good. I'd rather have more. What did Patton say? Patton said decision making is easy once you have all the facts, or at least as many of the facts as you can get, for sure. Julie, final thoughts here on the events here in Homer and in Seward.
Yeah, I'm just really glad to have the opportunity to learn more. You know, we are the ones in these local small governments when we have things like zoning permits or building permits. We're the ones talking to the homeowner or the contractor. And so the more that we know and that we can explain in a snapshot version about these events, that's really helpful and really important. Because not everybody's going to have time to, read Higgs published papers or those kinds of things. And so if we're able to better explain the hazard to people so they can make decisions and have that information, we'll be in a better spot.
Read Higgs published papers. You're assuming that I can read. All right, come on.
I don't know all the words that they're using, and I need help.
I'm a talk show host. You think I can actually read? I mean, that's amazing. All right. Well, Julie and Hig and Anna, you guys have been awesome. We appreciate you guys coming on board and sharing with us today all your thoughts and everything that's been going on. And we look forward to seeing what kind of information comes out of this. Keep us in the loop. If something new comes out, we'd love to bring you back on. This has been a very interesting, it doesn't always have to be about, I think this is important stuff, and I love talking about this kind of stuff in the community. So thank you to you all for coming on board and getting up so early to come do this with us. We appreciate it. Especially Julie, who looks like she went to her office, for goodness sakes. Anna's like, hey, I've got no chill. I don't care. Somebody just said, it's totally Alaskan. She's back here with all the wood and the thing. And we should do a GoFundMe to get her some insulation in there because it could get cold in there with no insulation. What the heck, Anna? Anyway, it should be some fun stuff. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for coming on board. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for coming on board. All right. Well, that's some good stuff. I think that's some fascinating information for sure. All right. We're going to rejoin here in just a minute. One more time for those of you who missed it. Again, Community Landslide Hazard Forum tomorrow, Ketchimack Bay campus, and on Thursday at the Seward Library. Doors open at 5:30. The event begins at 6, and it'll make for an interesting discussion for sure. So you guys can go check that out and I'll be part of it there for show. All right. Let's get back into it here. Where are we? 10 seconds out, getting ready to go. So let's peel back the rest of this stuff here and get ready to do it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense,
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah. This is some stuff you don't really think about a lot of times, but you should. You should be thinking. People have got the snarky comments. Hint: don't build on the edge of an eroding bluff. Thank you, Bill. That's words we can all live by, right? For sure. Anthony said, I get that there's a value in this, but the salty utilitarian in me wants to say if you build your house or community at the base of a cliff and don't plan and monitor for falling rocks, Mr. Darwin is holding on line 2. But there are times that we just don't think about it, right? We're so enamored with we were talking about the view, right? Oh, the view is so great, and it's going to be, I've got my dream house, and here's how I want it to be. And, we start writing checks that our bodies can't cash, where we need to look at that. And really, the first thing you should do if you're going to build on a slope that has any kind of potential for issues, like Julie was saying, if you're going to build a house that's, it's Homer, right? Any house that's going to be built in that view shed of Homer is probably going to be worth $1 million at sometimes. If you're going to invest that kind of money on a house, hell, if you were going to put $500,000 into a house, you'd think you might want to put a few $1,000s into having a geologist or a hydrologist or both come out and take a look and tell you where the water should go and what you should be doing and how you should be planning it. That just seems to make, this is the whole caveat emptor thing, right? This is where you need to be paying attention to what's going on. So anyway, you don't want, no, Jim just said, it's a free ticket to the Sullivan Center. No, Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to, have to be living in I mean, I think you could ask a lot of these folks who are out in Western Alaska right now if that's what what you want to be doing. You don't want to be doing that. So an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure at this point. So, I think this should be an interesting conversation. But again, this is why I chose to live on the top of the mountain, because I don't want things sliding away from me or on top of me or whatever. This has been a crazy, crazy time. Even Harold had something positive to say. He said, our parents sold off all their initial, wow, this is a great view property back in the 70s. He said the value skyrocketed, but in the mid 80s, a major landslide on the next lot over. Yeah, that's, again, just because you got great views, you need to, you still need to be prepared and be paying attention to it. That's for sure. And I'm happy to get the information. That's what they should be doing. Denise just said, I only caught the end of this discussion. My first thought was money spent for affluent to build. You just said what I was saying, rich folks study. No, I mean, I think this can apply to anybody, Denise. I don't think it has to necessarily just be rich people, but because I don't, probably the people in Ketchikan and in Haines and in Wrangell and in Sitka, probably a lot of them weren't, super wealthy people, but maybe they didn't understand what the dangers were geologically around where they had their houses. I think this is something that we should all be paying attention to if we're going to be building in areas where that, where all that stuff flows downhill, so to speak. Like we were saying earlier, gravity is the, gravity is the problem for sure. Anthony said $500K will build you a nice, comfy, single-story, 2-bedroom, 1-bath home in a 2025 economy. You're not even in the market for anything involving views or engineers with $500K nowadays. That's true. I mean, it seems like it's true anyway. Seems like every time I turn around, there's it's another thing. Just saying. All right. Well, we've got more coming up here in hour 2, and we're going to dive into some headlines. There's been some crazy splick that's happened around the state in just the last couple days. There's some things that are going on, but there is some good news out there somewhere. We'll dive into that and talk a little bit about that tomorrow on the program. Of course, Chris Story is going to be joining us and for our weekly uplift, and that of course is preceded by Brad Keithley. He's the reason we need Chris Story, because Brad comes in and lays the truth down on us in a hard way, and we need Chris to lift us back up after all that is said and done. On Wednesday on the program, it looks like we're going to have a double feature. I'm waiting for confirmation, but I'm going to tease it anyway. A double feature of Senator Rob Myers and Senator Mike Shower. That'll be a Wednesday feature. And we're hoping to hear this week from Sarah Vance as well. And we'll have more of that. That's all coming up this week. That's it for hour 1. It's in the can already. That was quick. Back with more directly ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Okay. Kim just said Gloomsday Tuesday. Wow. Wow. Right? Tawny said, sorry I missed this discussion. The Matsu has some tremendous landslide potentials, one that could cut off the Glen Highway, and if it let loose in total mass, could cut off a narrow portion of the Matsu River. Tawny, that's why we have a podcast. You can always go back and watch this, or just wait a little bit and you can come back and watch the replay. on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble. So, you can go back. You can go back and watch this or listen to it. One of the two. It's all good. Cindy just said they celebrated 28 years on Saturday. Congratulations, Cindy. Congratulations on that. It goes by so fast, doesn't it? My wife and I just celebrated our second anniversary because we have two. And I'll be honest, I forgot about the second one this year. I'm got a lot of stuff going on. We got married twice, right? We had the civil ceremony, then we had the big wedding. And so anyway, a week ago, that would be 34 years. 34 years. And how did we get that fast? I don't know. It's just like, it's crazy. That's 1.5 times the length that we'd been alive when we got married, right? So fast. Let's see. Let me go back over here. Layla says there are communities built in locations where houses must be built on mountainsides. The discussion, as with the Western District villages built on barrier islands, is whether those communities should exist in those locations at all. Well, I think people should be able to build where they want to build. I think the problem comes from when they expect Uncle Sugar to come out and bail them out after the fact. If they knew the dangers, the dangers of building, you don't build on the precipice of a volcano for the views. And then when the volcano blows, you go, hey, government's got to, hook me up with a, there you go. Tani says she's going to go back and watch the replay. Well, see, there you go. There you go. Jack says 51 years for him and she still likes him. Well, that's uncharacteristically strange, Jack. 51 years. Woof. Denise says 44. She's 44 years in. See, I'm just a pup here. I'm just a pup when it comes down to that. Frank says Uncle Sugar built those Western villages. There's some problem if it is a community that's been built with, by the government, then I guess shame on them for not looking at a better, I was talking with somebody last week about this, and they had just been out at Chivac, and Chivac was moved. He said the Chivac was moved in the mid 50s. And it was moved from down in the flat. They moved it up on top of a bluff. It's up on top of the bluff. And so with the storm and the typhoon, he said they had some roofs that got ripped off from the winds and stuff, but no flooding because they moved the community up on a bluff. So again, this is the, piss poor planning on your part kind of thing where you need to, be paying attention to what the area that you're building in. It's not a good area, then you shouldn't be there. That's the thing. Tony says, what? You don't want other people to pay for your choices? Yeah. Dodie says 48 years for her. So it looks like Jack is still the winner today with 51 years, but Dodie's a runner up here. And then Denise is in third place. And then I'm in fourth, and then Cindy's in fifth. So if we're taking a poll, it's where we're at here. 48 years. Congratulations, Dodie. And she still likes me. That still cracks me up with Jack. And she still likes me after 51 years. I'll be lucky if I get to 51 and she still likes me. I'll say that for nothing right now. All right. Well, we're coming back around to we're coming back around the horn. We're going to hit some headlines. Frank is like, AFN supports the No Kings, but they want Trump's bailout money. I mean, that is the dichotomy that we face every day. Come on, right, Frank? This is not the same thing. That's not the. I mean, it should not surprise you that that's what they want. This is the same group that thinks that only the police should have guns, but at the same time we should defund the police, right? Right? This is the same group of folks. Only the police should be the ones for us, but we should defund the police at the same time. So is it any surprise to you that that's kind of where we're going with this? People are a dichotomy. That's all I got to say. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, baby. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello. How are you guys doing? Are you ready for another beautiful day in paradise? It's any day above ground, right? Any day above ground is a good day as far as I'm concerned. And any day without snow is also a good day as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that seems redundant to me, but it's all good. How you guys doing? You ready to dive into this and get things ready to rock and roll for hour 2 this morning? We're going to do some headlines. We just finished up with a discussion about landslides, and that doesn't sound necessarily sexy, but that's okay. It's good. It's been a real good conversation, and I'm glad we got a chance to get into it, because it's an important part of where we are here in the state of Alaska, and we should be paying attention to it. Again, that meeting, by the way, for those of you who missed it, the meeting is going to be taking place tomorrow in Homer at the Ketchimak Bay campus, and on Thursday in Seward. So if you're listening in Seward, at the Seward Library, and the doors open at 5:30 and the presentations start at 6. So you can go over there and check that out. Headlines. Well, there's some crazy stuff happening around the state. Not the least of which, of course, is the No Kings rally that took place across the state. 17 communities had folks out there protesting No Kings, which again, I kind of shake my head. I'm all for people being able to have their voices heard, and I have no problem with these protests. I really don't. But what concerns me is the fact that most of them, from what I've seen, and not just here in the state, but across the country, we've all seen the man on the street stuff and everything else. But they can't necessarily articulate what exactly they're concerned about. I mean, other than they're concerned about the president, right? I'm deeply concerned about the threat to our Constitution from President Trump, said a philosophy professor in UAA in Anchorage. And somebody in Fairbanks said, I just want to come out from the community and voice my unhappiness about where the country is. Okay. All right. Somebody in the Matsu rally said, we said what we needed to say about how we feel about our freedom and our democracy and how we feel that's being taken away from us. Okay. And I'm trying to figure out what has been taken away. What specifically has been taken away? My wife was having a discussion with one of her friends, as she is wont to do occasionally on Facebook. She gets into, not a tiff, but they, kind of a point for point, like, and so she's talking with in what exactly are you afraid of? Well, that he's going to be a king. Well, what does that mean? That he's going to try and I mean, we're a country of rules and laws, right? I don't see a way for Trump to, I don't know, bust his term limits and say, I'm running for president again. And again, I couldn't see any articulable argument as far as what right have people lost in these things. I mean, I'm all for people, for people being able to have their say and they want to go out and protest. That's great. The person in Fairbanks that said, I just wanted to come out with a community and voice my unhappiness. You are 100% allowed to do that. And you know what? More power to you for doing so, for saying that you're unhappy with where the country is right now. I mean, we were unhappy with where the country was, for 4 years. And even before that, back in Obama, I mean, I was unhappy with, so,
Welcome to the party, pal.
I mean, that's all I could say. Welcome to it. Great. But that doesn't mean that, I just love this idea of somehow he's a king because he's doing things that they disagree with. And again, this whole idea, and we've seen this verbiage, and I know we don't normally get into national stuff, but since this is right here in our backyard and all these people, and it was a pretty significant crowd, there was a couple thousand people in Anchorage, and they had the protest in Soldotna as well, and one down here in Homer and in Fairbanks and the Matsu, they all had their protests, right? But again, what is it exactly that you felt like you've lost? I hear all the talking points. I hear how the president is a threat to democracy. He's a threat to our Constitution. Now, again, I know that there's been challenges with President Trump over whether he could do certain things. And in some cases, he has been, the courts have approved. And in some cases, the courts have disapproved what he's been doing. But this was the same thing that happened under Joe Biden. There were many things that happened under Joe Biden and things that happened under Obama where the courts challenged it and they said, you do not have the authority to do that. But we weren't up in arms screaming about how they were trying to be kings on that issue. I mean, that's what the courts are for, right? To try and decide and determine, according to the original documents is that something that they have the authority to do? And so, it's, and then you add to the fact that Trump is like the biggest troll in history. He just loves, in Trump's mind, I think, this is my take on it. In Trump's mind, there is no such thing as bad press, right? As long as his name is front and center, he feels like he's winning. So he will say things like, he came out and has said things like "Long live the king" in some of his tweets and things like that, and I think it's just to stir the pot, right? I mean, that's just who he is. But again, he said, they say they're referring to me as king. I'm not a king, said Trump on an interview on Friday. And so, and I don't agree with Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, said that he characterized the protests as hate America rallies. I don't think these people hate America. I think that they just hate Trump. And they just hate the fact that they lost in the election. And that it's going in a direction, opposite of the way that they wanted it to go. But then to conflate this whole thing with the shutdown, that's been the craziest thing. And I don't know if they're trying to put the pressure on, put the pressure on with these No Kings rallies. I mean, for me, it doesn't really, it doesn't really follow. One does not follow the other, because the shutdown right now can squarely be laid at the feet of the Democrats. The Democrats have voted for a clean continuing resolution for what, like 13 times, 14 times, over a dozen times. Okay. They voted for a clean resolution, but now they're saying that this isn't a clean resolution. Why? Because it ignores what they want. It ignores their demands of restoring the Medicaid cuts and the Affordable Care Tax credits and the NPR money and everything else. So because it ignores those things, it's not a clean that's their argument. It's not a clean resolution. Again, kind of bending the definition of what the words mean and everything else. So, I mean, let's get back to the Kings thing. All I could say is, in all the interviews that I've watched, both here in the state and across the country, there is really no articulable reason that can be given as to why this is a No Kings rally. But because you're right, we don't have kings. Ironically, somebody said there was actually a No Kings protest in England, in London as well, where they actually have a king, which is kind of ironic. But here, again, it's not really about no kings. It's just that they don't like the president and they don't like the fact that he won the election. Okay, protest away. But don't be upset when people don't understand where you're coming from. Right? Don't be upset when people are kind of scratching their head going, what? I mean, it's a threat to our Constitution. It's a threat to our democracy. Okay. I mean, I don't see how. Again, there's been plenty of things that have been done by past administrations that were, I guess you could say, just as egregious. And even though we were upset about it, nobody screamed that it was a threat to democracy and that, we were all going to die. It's gotten to be kind of this very knee-jerky reaction that I think is problematic, to say the least. But again, they had protests across, I don't know, what was it? They said there was like 2,500 protests across the country. Good for you. Good. And again, that just shows me one thing. It shows me that the left, again, is very good at organizing. Very good at organizing. But there you go. Cindy just said, I'm guessing these same people didn't mind being told by the government to wear masks. Right. I mean, that's been some of the comments. It's like, you're okay with the government shutting everything down, your business, your job, making you wear a mask, making you get a jab if you want to go do certain things or go to certain places. You were okay with that, but now this is No Kings. It's, yeah. Protest all you want. Just don't be surprised if we don't buy into it and we don't support it. That's all. I want you to be able to protest. Good for you. Good for you. Richie says, if we in fact did have a king, would they have been allowed to do what they were doing? No. Try and do that in North Korea. Try and do that in, Russia or Iran or wherever. Try and do that anywhere else. I mean, and Richie makes another point. Maybe, when you say no kings, what happened to the democracy that you were fighting for when they slotted in Kamala Harris without a vote? When they just slotted her right in there without a vote of the party. I mean, that was okay. That wasn't a threat to democracy. So it's one of those interesting things. But anyway, I'm glad people got a chance to go out there and vote and protest. I'm glad that they are able to do that. Congratulations. Again, just don't be upset when we're not all on board with you, I guess is the biggest thing there. All right, we got more coming up here in just a moment. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, so I want to get back into the chat room. Renee just said something. I'm not quite sure what Renee's trying to say here. She said, so you buy into a sexual predator. What does that mean, Renee? Are you saying that the president is a sexual predator? Is that what you're saying? I guess that's what you're inferring here. But again, we've got the Joe G, your hair smells terrific, you 12-year-old girl Biden out there as well. So, is that the same kind of thing that we're, is that what you're talking about? Because they got just about as much proof on either side of those arguments. Okay. So, again, where's the proof? Where's the prosecution? Where's the, you can say that, but how so? That's like saying the president's xenophobic, but he married a foreigner and he's racist. But there's no example. Again, just casting the aspersion out there doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't do anything because you can't prove it. You may feel it, but you can't prove it. He advocated for sexual assault back in 2016 on the Access Hollywood video. Yes, I'm sure sure. Okay. What he said was reprehensible, but I don't think he was advocating for sexual assault. But, your interpretation is your interpretation. Let's see. I'm glad they protested too. There's 2,500 events worth of people now easily identified as ideological captured lost causes I know not to waste time on. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And Trump got in the popular vote by a landslide. I don't think most of us voted for a king. Well, he won the electoral and the popular vote, right? So, it's pretty definitive that this is the guy that people wanted, which is the definition of democracy. Last time I checked, right? I thought you were a local issues guy. Yes, I am a local issues guy. We were talking about the local No Kings protest. That's why it got into this, which I am happy to now disengage from because I really don't care. Because it's not like I can do anything to affect what's going on with, what's happened nationally, Yeah. the women that stood on the Capitol steps and come out with the truth, because we have to believe all women no matter what. Are you talking about the Epstein stuff? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know exactly what you're talking about, because again, I don't necessarily follow all that stuff and I don't really care. But again, I just want to make it clear, Renee, that since we have no actual proof and we have no, there's no convictions, there's nothing else, that's just kind of a red herring. That's really what that is about. It's a red herring. When we have actual proof, and if he was convicted, then that would be one thing. But again, it's just the whole thing. It's like, anyway. Yeah. That's a trash issue, says Harold. Even Harold agrees. That's a trash issue. No kings. Trump was elected. Want something different, vote differently. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see where it goes from here. All right. Well, Aunt Randy actually had something really good here. He says, I think what's behind the No Kings demonstration is that they want a more authoritarian, heavily regulated society, but many participants don't really understand that and are fooled by the communist-style diversionary, misleading rhetoric and left-wing buzzwords. There you go. There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, let's continue. Yeah, I mean, Bill Clinton and the cigar. Let's talk about that for a minute. Anyway, we're going to continue. Anthony, you're killing me, man. All right, let's jump back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Okay. We are ready to go. We're continuing on our discussion today of all the hot headlines from around the state. And some of the things that I haven't had time to get to here in the last couple weeks. And I'm glad we're finally going to get a chance to dive into this and start talking about it. And we'll get into it. Interesting that there was a piece on Friday about the mayoral race in which was the mayoral race in Anchorage, which is now hot and heavy and underway. Where Alex Guymark, who lives in Anchorage, and he writes for Must Read and for other places as well. He has now filed a APOC complaint on a second mayoral candidate. He filed an APOC complaint against the current mayor, Suzanne LaFrance, back in September, and he's now filed a second campaign report. It's a campaign financing report complaint against Bill Popp, who is another candidate for mayor. And we'll see what goes on. Analysis of his reports. Apparently, Alex went through all of his financing reports, and he said he identified 31 non-compliance issues, which most of them fail to discreetly disclose each contractor or subcontractor engaged in creating a product. So what he did was that he hired I guess an advertising company or a media company to do all of his advertising. And in doing so, he bundled those payments together, and it apparently then violates the discrete services portion of APOC. One example of the violation is documented in the 30-day report where he bundled $7,000 of expenditures for Alpha Media and CTV. And a second example is Pop bundling $18,000 of media services for TV and radio into 4 lump sums. State law requires each media placement to be reported discreetly, and there's another 13 possible violations there. Now, that is true, because I can tell you that as we take money in for political advertising, that each individual buy from a media outlet, from an advertiser, from a politician, each individual buy has to be broken out with separate forms. Those forms have to be filed on our FCC public file, so the public can go out and look at those at any time, except for when there's a government shutdown, because they turn the public file off for some reason when you have a government shutdown. But you can go out there and look at it. Now, that's not to say that if a campaign wants to purchase, for example, let's say a campaign wants to purchase all their advertising at once for the entire campaign. Let's say that they want to do a 60 days worth of advertising in a campaign. As long as they planned and purchased everything at once, that is a single purchase. So I don't know. I haven't dug down into this yet to take a look at this as an example, but I see that this could be another way where that lawfare that we've talked about in the past can be used. It's a little quid pro quo, so to speak. And it's interesting. 31 potential violations is what Guy Mark has put forward here. He said those 31 potential violations at $50 a day for 530 days, which would be the this is for the 2024 mayoral campaign. All right. That would be an $800,000 fine. $800,000 fine is the possibility. Okay. So I'll be watching this. I'll be watching this closely, because dang, I mean, these races are getting more and more expensive. I mean, the race itself already cost almost $100,000, $115,000, something like that. And if you get dinged with a complaint and it's an $800,000 potential fine, oof. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't do turnabouts, fair play, but at some point, when does that just preclude people from wanting to participate? Right? First of all, I got to go raise all the money to begin with, and now I could potentially be hit with an $800,000 fine on the backside. Whoa. But it's Anchorage. I mean, speaking of Anchorage, what were we just talking about last week? Remember, we were talking about the 22 murders in Anchorage already this year, which was what, 2 a month, essentially, already in Anchorage? More than 2 a month, because we're not even all the way through October. And I was saying what a crazy place it is, and why would anybody want to live in in Anchorage right now? And then this happened on Friday. There were three murders on Friday. Now, I guess the one piece of good news is that the Anchorage police have arrested a 36-year-old man in connection with the double homicide that took place at 8th and Cordova Street. I mean, that's like 4 blocks away from the police department. It's crazy. So they arrested this guy, Mario Jackson. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree murder. This is from a police responded to reports of a shooting at 8:21 p.m. on Friday and found a man and woman already deceased at the scene. They identified and arrested the suspect. The arrest comes as police continue to investigate a separate homicide that occurred on Friday evening at 6:51 p.m., where they had responded to the 2000 block of Fiddlehead Place, where they found a woman with trauma to the upper body from an apparent stabbing, and she was declared deceased. So we had a stabbing and a shooting in Anchorage on Friday, 3 people dead. So we ended the week, started the week with 22 murders, ended the week with 25. And I got to go, what is going on in Anchorage? I mean, I don't know. I don't even have I can't even wrap my brain around this right now. Like, what is going on? And again, even though the police department said our top priority is safety for everyone in Anchorage, we also want our residents and our Alaska Federation of Natives visitors and those from Western Alaska who are seeking shelter to know that APD is fully engaged. Well, thank God for that, right? Thank God all those visitors know I'm sure they feel much safer now that this is what's going on. But I just don't know why you would want to live in Anchorage with all the stuff that's going on right there. I mean, you do you, boo. But right there in the heart of downtown, ba-bam, ba-bam, ba-bam. 3 murders in one night. Whew. Gotta wonder what the heck is going on? What the heck is happening? Speaking of AFN, I thought it was pretty interesting that Mary Peltola got up and spoke at AFN. And she said, she started off by saying, I want to preface everything I'm saying with, this is going to be very anticlimactic for everyone. No big announcements, no big declarations. She said, what I want to talk about is subsistence. And so she got up there and she talked about subsistence hunting and fishing in Alaska. She didn't talk about any of everybody is waiting for her, right? Everybody is waiting for her to jump in the race, either to commit to her 2026 run for Congress against Begich again, or to jump in the race and run for governor. And I mean, I don't know if she's just waiting to see where things fall out or what, but I mean, she's just, it's almost like she's doing it. Well, I mean, she is doing it on purpose, but it's almost like she's just stretching it out because, I don't know, it keeps her in the spotlight or what. I mean, she's laughing when she says, no big announcements, no big declarations. So she's still a candidate for 2026 because she'd filed prior to her defeat. According to federal records filed prior to her defeat, she remains a candidate for the 2026 race. But she could also run for governor. Now, Tom Begich, who's already said that he would bow out if she joins the race, that he's essentially just a placeholder. That's how he's put it in there. He's essentially just a placeholder for her until it I don't even know, man. What is going on? I mean, again, more power to her that she's doing her thing, more power to her. But I just don't know what's happening there. But she's in there. She's getting her say. Murkowski also spoke during the AFN. And she talked about how there are FEMA or EPA people, somebody's on the ground in Western Alaska, even though President Trump has not declared an emergency declaration for that area as well yet. But we'll see what's. Oh, and she did basically. That was the other thing that kind of surprised me. She came out and said that I don't have that the canceled EPA grant we keep hearing about. This is what Gavin Newsom is going on about here in Alaska, about the response to the Western Alaska and about canceling that $20 million EPA grant that the Biden administration had put out. That by canceling that, Trump had endangered West. And even Murkowski said that the EPA grant would not have provided any protection from the typhoon. Would not have been able to make a difference for this storm. So that's good. That's great. I'm excited to hear it. It's good that she can point that out, I guess. All right. We are going to continue here. We got more coming up. Oh, there's a new challenger, by the way, for Mark Begich, or for Nick Begich. Sorry, Nick. For Nick Begich. He's got a new challenger. We talk about that up next. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We continue with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Dukes Show.
Okay. Hi there. Let me get back over here to the other side. Oh, Anna, throw this up there. She said, here's more resources for people interested in to learn more about the landslide hazards in Alaska. Hig gave a presentation in the spring of 2025. 2 GGGS reports of some of the landslide hazards in Homer, susceptibility map in Homer, and Coastal Bluff. There's a lot of stuff in there. Thank you, Anna, for throwing that out there. Appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Let's see. I'm scrolling backwards. Okay. Time for the state to get out of okay. As nice say, Los Angeles, the pictures anyway. Let's see. ASD can reopen closed schools, and each can be used as a K-12 Lower Kuskokwim School District. They already have teaching staff. They just reopen the schools. Oh, use the closed schools for the Lower Kuskokwim. Not a bad idea. Yeah, I saw the story about how the city hall is not owned by the city. They would have to pay $33 million for the building. Oh, man. Let's see here. Again, this is APOC. There are greater reporting requirements in Alaska for a school board candidate than there are for run for president. Okay. Let's see. How about using APOC needs to be changed? Yeah, I think they had 3 in one day. Yeah, this is 3 since last Wednesday, said Brian. Yeah, those 3 all took place on a Friday. Greg asked if it was full moon craziness. I don't know. Anchorage is Little Chicago. Yeah. let's go over here. Nancy's girl. I'm sorry, I'm still scrolling through here. Why not Lisa's Senate seat? She's doing a reverse Kamala maneuver. Peltola. Yeah, it's where she just basically plays coy the whole time. I don't know. Let's see. It's snowing at Greg's house. Shut up, Greg. I mean, glad to hear it, Greg. Be quiet, Greg. I don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. La 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 la. Kim says we're right on schedule with snow stays in the ground by Halloween in Fairbanks. Well, good for you guys. I'm going to be up there on Friday, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'll be honest, just not looking forward to it. South Central is a major earthquake zone. No investment in this area. Lease yes, own nope, says Harold. Okay. Let's see. Tawny Boothby has some landslide information. Oh, this is for Anna. Tawny Boothby has some landslide information about the Glen Highway up past Sutton 2. Might be having her on. Okay. Oh, it was for me. I guess it was. Well, maybe we should. We could talk to Tawny about that as well. 31 degrees in Fairbanks, right? Okay. Maybe Peltola is aware she can't fully represent Alaska in D.C. She disgraced herself as her representative, which is why she lost. She represented the party instead of Alaska. She might have a shot at governor. We seem to be going through a stupid phase. The Republicans will select Nancy Dahlstrom or run against her, and that'll ensure a win for Mary. You can't expect much from a candidate without a personality. Ow, that's crazy. No, I'll be on the show on Friday, but I will be off the air on Monday because I will be traveling back. Brian just asked if there's no show on Friday. There's a show on Friday, but there will be no show on Monday because I will be traveling back from Fairbanks at that point. So, sorry. Chris just said, my lawn is still green in Fairbanks. Might have to get the lawnmower out. Crazy. Oh man, I cannot remember a Halloween in Fairbanks without snow. Maybe there was one, but I certainly don't remember it. All right, let's get to it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
All right, my friends, let's continue our discussions here. Some of the headlines from around the state. What else have we got here? I've had a few things on hold that I wanted to come back and talk about. We could talk about University of Alaska Southeast is now offering in-state tuition to every person that comes here. The university's current estimated cost of attendance for an Alaska resident living on campus is almost $32,000 a year, compared to the non-resident rate of $45,000, almost $46,000 per year. And they've set up a new initiative where they will cut $15,000 off the cost of tuition for an undergrad coming from out of state. So that in-state tuition applies to anybody pursuing a bachelor's, associate's, certificate, or technical degree. And they're opening it now. I mean, I don't know how they can afford to do that, but good for them. I guess unless they're going to call and ask the state to backfill that $15,000 per student backfill, because ouch, if that's the case, I mean, I guess we'll see. Good Good for them, I guess, if you're in that neck of the woods. What else did I want to hit on? Oh, yeah, the parental, and this took place last week, and we didn't get a chance to get to it. But the education task force that Kevin McCabe was on talking about last week, and he wrote about a piece where he said, it was unconscionable that they hold this meeting. First of all, that they hold the meeting in Juneau. And second of all, that they only invite people to basically educational bureaucrats, people from the industry, right? Stakeholders, God, I hate that word. But I mean, that they're basically only bringing in people who are affected by this. The Alaska Watchman has this article from last week where they were talking about this, where there's a new letter writing campaign being organized by Parents' Rights in Education Alaska, basically saying that if lawmakers want input on how to improve our dismal public school system, that they shouldn't just rely exclusively on the people who got us there, essentially entrenched educational establishment people that have presided over the failed institution. But maybe they should actually talk to parents and students, actual parents and students. So that's the argument behind this letter writing campaign. The Education Task Force is a group of 6 legislators who are holding several meetings to brainstorm ways to improve Alaska's state-run school system. But to date, the majority Democrat task force has only solicited educational bureaucrats and union leaders to the invite-only discussion. Well, now, at the group's next meeting, parental rights advocates are demanding to be heard. A suggested form letter to lawmakers states, the Alaska Task Force on Education will make recommendations that could reshape K-12 education from across our state for years to come. Yet, despite the profound impact of these decisions on families, the task force includes no parents or student representatives. Instead, the only invited speakers are representatives from NEA Alaska's Teachers Union, the Alaska Municipal League, the Alaska Association of School Board, and the Alaska Council of School Administrators. Now, the irony of this is that these groups are basically the same lobbying groups that go to state lawmakers every year and tell them that they need increased spending on schools, but are also the same group that are stubbornly opposed to any kind of policy changes. What do you think is going to come out of this? I mean, I'm asking for a friend. What do you think is going to come out of these discussions, if that's the case? If these are the people that are being invited to speak, and it is invite only, there is no public testimony at this meeting. You have to be invited to come in and discuss this, right? So if that's the case, what do you think the outcome is going to be? When the groups that are being invited are the same ones that go to the legislature, go to Juneau, and lobby the state for more money, and yet at the same time are the ones that are absolutely opposed to any other, policy change or any other kind of, any kind of formatting change to the way that they're doing things. So what do you think is going to happen? I mean, what do you think the recommendations are going to be based on that? I'm just asking. The draft letter from the parental rights group notes that parents and students experience the real-world effects of a failing system, including learning gaps, absenteeism, and inequitable access to quality education. The letter states, if the task force is serious about accountability and student success, it must include parent and student voices as equal participants, not silent observers. Alaska families deserve more than a live stream link. They deserve representation and respect in the process determining their children's future. Decisions about Alaska's children should never be made without those who know their needs best. Parents must have a seat at the table. Alaska kids deserve nothing less. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. If you are having a task force on education and fixing what is fundamentally, and I think most people acknowledge, is fundamentally a flawed system or a broken system. Again, look at our expenditures on a per student basis and then look at our outcomes and realize that there's a disconnect there and we've got a problem. Why would they not invite the parents and the students to the conversation? I guess unless the fix is in and you've already decided what you want your outcome to be, what you want your recommendation to be. And if that is the case, we talked about this when this whole idea of a educational task force was floated. Was that, looking at who controlled it and looking at the members who were on the task force, it made, it was pretty easy to look at and realize that what they really wanted was they wanted political cover to basically come out and say, we need more money. Not a discussion on what are we doing? How are we fixing it? What can we do? That this essentially is going to come back to, these are the same groups, the ones that are being invited to come and testify. These are the same groups that go to the legislature every year and tell the legislature that they need more money, right? The AML, the Municipal League, right? The NEA's Teachers Union, the Association of School Boards, and the Council of School Administrators. These are all groups that come in there and say, we need more money. So what do you think? What do you think if this is it? Now, granted, they could change. The next meeting's not for another 10 days. Maybe they could change their mind and invite a parental group, or they could invite a student representative or whatever. They could have some people in there. And right, are you finding yourself surprised by the closed process, Michael? No kings, but a cabal is acceptable. Shouldn't we have that? Shouldn't there be parental input and involvement in this system and in this change? If parents are leaving, which is what we've seen, right? That if parents are leaving and pulling their kids out of the school system, wouldn't you want to know why? Wouldn't you want to understand what's going on? It's to me, it would seem to make sense. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with this meeting on the 30th, this letter writing campaign. You can go over to the Alaska Watchman, and there's links in there where you can get copies of the letter if you want to participate and do everything else. I'll post links up into the chat room. It's at the Alaska Watchman. Alaska parents demand a seat at the Education Task Force table. You should go check it out and send a letter. Maybe by the 30th, maybe they will invite somebody in. That would be a unique opportunity. Or maybe the fix is in. I don't know. All right, we got to go. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Brad Keithley, Chris Story, The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense, Liberty Based, Free Thinking Radio. We'll see you tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. Okay. Oof. Just another beautiful day in paradise. I didn't even get to the big news. That that Andy Josephson is not going to seek re-election. No, Felix Rivera is who. Felix Rivera. Oh man. Can you imagine? Anyway, I appreciate all you guys. The fix is in, says Brian, but I am cynical. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see this, I'd love to see what's going on here. All right, Eric Hafner's back in the race. Can't wait to see what goes on with that. All right, my friends, I got to get out of here. I want you guys to be kind, love one another, live well, do all that stuff. Mostly just keep your head up, right? Keep your head up out there. That's all we can do. No Andy. Wow, says Frank. Yeah, I know, kind of crazy, huh? All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being part of it. We will continue tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. We'll see you.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.